Millennials are living in Ragnarok. The world you were born in no longer exists, and the tools we were given to survive are no longer helpful. We are very Odinic in our nature as a generation. We are transient, we're wanderers, we value wisdom more than mammon. We want something that the world just doesn't have to offer. And I've had this feeling for a long time. It really started for me in 2012. That's when I believe the world actually ended. And we are actually in a pocket dimension that split off when the Mayan calendar actually hit. And now we have to go through the motions of this pocket dimension timeline where things just don't make sense anymore. And I'm sure the other timeline are enjoying themselves. They get to basically continue on how things were, but they just have a better internet connection. They have faster computers, but they get the prosperity of the previous generations. And, that's their luck. We lucked out on the Kali Yuga Ragnarok timeline, but there is a bit of a benefit to it. Imagine incarnating into this world, right? You're about to incarnate, and they're like, "You want to be a millennial? Are you serious? You want to be a millennial, a Western male millennial?" And you're looking at whatever deity, whatever demigod, whatever thing is talking. You're like, "Yeah, I want to be a millennial, bro. Throw me in, man. 4 times XP on my spiritual prestige. Let's do it." Right. And then we were launched in to the 90s. Some of us were launched into the 80s. People in the 80s. I notice there is a bit of a split within the millennial generation, with millennials who were born in the 80s versus the later millennials like myself. And I really think what it comes down to is that they did not go to high school when cell phones were a thing. Maybe the very last bit of the 80s had a little bit of that, but we have a completely different trajectory from them in a lot of ways, simply because we had to go to school when cell phones were a thing and every girl had a cell phone. And I remember this one time, man. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. I think I was in grade 11. That's when it really kicked off for me. Younger guys, they came in grade 9. It was already a thing. For me, grade 11, grade 12, that's when cell phones were really starting to become more of a thing. And I remember this girl asked me for my number. And I was like, "I don't even have a number." She's like, "Oh." I'm like, "What about MSN, TIE Fighter 69 at hotmail.com. Give me that MSN." But no, MSN was already out the door by then. I mean, if you didn't have a cell phone, you were cooked. You were scooped. You were done. But yeah, we chose to we chose to incarnate as millennials. If you believe in that or whatever, maybe we didn't choose, maybe we were forced to. I don't know. Something like that happened, but we get an XP boost for it, so I'm okay with that. You know, we're a lot wiser for our ages than previous generations. Okay, we get hate. We get hate not only from boomers, not only from Gen X, but we also get hate from Zoomers. We're cringe, we're lame, we're annoying. I get it. Okay, we have a lot of bad representatives, of course. We have some good ones too. I'm not going to return the hate. I like Zoomers. They're cool. They're interesting. They're funny. They seem to get it a lot more, probably because they are going to have it a lot harder than even we did. I was thinking about this the other day. I was talking to a friend. I was like, if I was a Zoomer, I would have been just absolutely toast. I wouldn't have had girlfriends. I wouldn't have had economic success to the point where I would be able to travel, probably. I think it would have been a lot harder for me if I was a Zoomer. I really kind of eked my way out at the very last and before all of this hyper modernity started to spiral out of control. But yeah, we get a lot of hate as a generation. I'm not okay with it. I'm going to stick up for us, especially if you're a white millennial guy. Okay, I can only really speak for my own demographic experience, because I obviously it's going to be vastly different if you're from a different continent than me, if you're from a different generation from me. But I can only really speak from my experience. And, you know, when you go to college and foreigners with rich doctors for parents are talking about your white privilege, that's when that's when the inversion of reality really started to hit me. Because I never thought about these issues at all. Okay, everybody where I was from, it was such a white town. It still is, one of these kind of shangs where things aren't so different now. Where like English kids, like people with English last names and people with Scottish last names would harp on each other. Like that's how white it was where I grew up. Okay, so going going to these cities and then everything is like different, and people are telling you're privileged and they literally have millionaire parents. Everything just I had a total awakening. I was kind of awake, I was into some conspiracy stuff before that, but never on that level. And so, you're gaslit and you're told that you have some sort of advantage, but then you just look around and you don't really see any advantage. And sure, the upper crust, the very upper crust, because I know upper crust people, and they're going through this stuff too a lot of the time. Like a lot of them aren't being set up anymore like they used to. I really think it's now like a beyond 1% thing where a lot of people are feeling now that they're not being set up, and like that window of opportunity for people who are going to experience generation wealth is getting more and more narrow. So people who should be, having that old waspy connections and experiencing that's going away too for a lot of people. And now we kind of have this new class of guys where, yeah, like probably should have been working in some sort of white collar job, some sort of, you know, upper management job, and now they don't. And they have a lot of free time now. So, and I'm not saying that's me either, but I know there are people like that out there. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Yeah, okay. So we incarnated into this timeline where we see everything change. Everything that we were told was going to happen didn't pan out. Get to school, go to college, get the degree, get the job, get the watch, get the pension, get the cottage, and that's your life. And I'm not really lamenting the fact that we don't have that anymore, because I really, even that post World War II nuclear family lifestyle is still a sickness of modernity. It's not natural. It's something that I don't really even want, something I don't want to aspire to have anyway. But those were kind of the things we were programmed into valuing. And then a lot of people got rug pulled now and they don't have that. And we're all kind of collectively gazing each other's eyes, wondering what's going on. Millennials right now are going through a collective midlife crisis, even the younger ones. A lot earlier, our midlife crisis is like 30 compared to how people were before. A lot of people, the boomers bought a Corvette. That's how they dealt with it. Gen X watched Fight Club and lamented the fact that they had too much furniture that they could afford. we are experiencing a bit more of an existential crisis a lot earlier. Maybe our lifespans will even be shorter. I've already lost friends. I'm sure a lot of you have already lost friends. It's rough out there. And what can we say? The midlife crisis, the millennial, what does that entail? What can we really do? Are we going to buy a Corvette? No. Are we going to join a fight club? No. I think a lot of us are channeling it into more creative endeavors. I see a lot of creative people popping up, a lot of extremely talented, funny people. And it's these kind of outsiders that I enjoy spending my time with, even though it's more of a parasocial relationship. I don't care. We get our balls busted by the media if we're indulging in parasocial relationships. So what? At least it's not a forced parasocial relationship like how it used to be with these Hollywood actors who would be shoehorned into our eyeballs in the 90s and 2000s. At least now we have the opportunity in the market to express and choose what kind of parasocial relationship we want to engage in. And so I like listening to outsiders. I like listening to outcasts. I can kind of relate to that. I can actually really relate to that. Because even though I'm supposed to be a privileged male in this society, I've always kind of felt like on the outskirts. And okay, I'm not Mr. Aryan poster boy, but I am white enough to be told I have white privilege. All right. So I have Scottish privilege. I have Gallic privilege. Okay. We're the most privileged people on earth, the Gauls. Now, so we're in Ragnarok. Everything that we know is gone. Everything that we thought was going to pan out is different. How do we deal with that? What do we do? Do we lament over it? Well, lamenting's fun, it's therapeutic, it's entertaining, makes some people laugh over it. Dunk on some boomers, by the way. I did not expect that video to pop off. Thank you very much for watching it, for enjoying it. I'm going to follow up that video with some of the comments you wrote, and we're going to really examine the Boomer Yuga firsthand. And so, one of my favorite writers of all time is a Sicilian chap by the name of Julius Evola. And he talks about riding the tiger. And how I relate it to is it's almost like wushu. You use the energies of the day in accordance to what you want instead of trying to fight against it, like punching a brick wall or trying to Glasgow nod a brick wall. You have to you have to use that energy and move with it and try to redirect that energy where you want to go. I've only gotten one award in my entire life, one trophy, and that was in rugby for hitting people. And the way I knew how to hit people in rugby was not by running up directly at them and trying to just smack into them like a tank. I would come at them from the side, I like flank them, and then just all I would do, I would just grab onto them, slump down, and then the weight of their own momentum would fall down with me. And that's what I mean by riding the tiger. That's what I mean by wushu, is kind of using the energies of today in accordance with what you want, which is why I play video games while I talk about these topics, because that's the energy of the day. That's the medium of the day. And that's what's getting me a lot more views than trying to do other types of slideshow videos. So, and by the way, if you like niche esoteric topics, I have 100 videos on different very niche obscure topics in that more slideshow type format, so you can go check those out in my library if you're so inclined. But that wushu type, and be water, Bruce Lee, you gotta use that millennial energy instead of trying to fight against it, trying to become an echo boomer. Instead, you want to become a giga millennial. It is a different time. One thing I realized lately was the Kirk assassination and how it felt different. I'm going to be honest, I was never a big fan of Charlie Kirk. I don't ascribe to that type of Americana, Bible, Christian nationalism brand of politics, but okay, his assassination did feel different to me, and I was thinking about this for a while. I don't like to just jump out of the woodwork as soon as something happens. I always wait for the dust to settle to see what's really going on. Never trust the official story of what's going on. Okay, Kash Patel is on it, right? He's the guy who's telling you what's up, Kash Patel. So I always wait for the dust to settle. And Americans, I know I have a lot of Americans who watch. One thing I'll say about Americans is that they can get whipped up into a frenzy very quickly without assessing what happened with everything and trying to wait until the dust settled until they understand really what happened. And we'll see. I still don't know what happened. I'm still, waiting. I'm still weighing in things. But one thing I noticed is that, oh, by the way, Candace Owens is a complete psyop trying to make schizos look bad. Anyway, just had to get that off my chest. Okay. One thing I noticed about Kirk and the assassination is why it felt different is because he was a millennial. He was even maybe a year or two younger than me. Okay. It's weird. It was weird. And that's why everyone kind of felt different, I think, about it. It's weird to see someone your own age get publicly executed like that in 4K with a cell phone, because I remember watching the Zapruder film when JFK was assassinated, and it was grainy, and Jackie Kennedy, you could kind of make out that she was grabbing some skull fragments, but it was still really blurry and grainy and really low frame. And I even remember Saddam Hussein. I was watching him get executed in high school, in the high school library, actually. Me and my buddy were watching Live Leak in the high school library, watching Saddam Hussein get executed. And somebody filmed that on like an iPod. That wasn't even an iPhone. Somebody was filming an iPod execution footage of Saddam, and you could barely make out. It was pretty poor quality. But this one was high quality, millennial, white guy getting executed. It was different. And I felt different about it. It was, but again, that's life. Life is short. He was a millennial and now it's gone. And so, I mean, things can be gone in a moment. So just, I don't, yeah, some guys I know are having a really rough time and they wish it was gone. But sometimes you have to find the small little blessings in life and realize, well, it could have been me. Anyway, we've had a very difficult time, haven't we, my millennial brethren? You know, certainly the Americans too, and I can kind of relate a lot because even though I am not from that country, obviously that has a huge impact on the politics of my country. And I remember in school, 9/11 happened, and I think I was 10, and these teachers are psychotic. I have to make a whole video dedicated to how teachers are possessed by archons, because these teachers in Canada are more powerful than the mob. We are a teacherocracy. They rule us with an iron grip and squash out any rebellion that ferments in this land. Anyway, these teachers are psychotic. And what was going on? Okay, we were little kids still. We were 10. And the teacher thought it was a good idea to make us undergo trauma-based mind control. And every day we would cut out newspaper articles of what happened during 9/11 and plaster it on a collage on the front billboard of the class. And I remember this one girl, one day, she just had a breakdown. She just started bawling and crying about the people jumping out of the tower because there was a collage on it of all these people jumping out on the tower. on our front billboard. And I think that was in poor taste. I think that was a bad call. And but whatever piece of trauma-based mind control these demented teachers could muster up, they would enforce it over us. I remember another instance, Columbine. Columbine happened kind of before, it wasn't, it was a bit before my time. I kind of heard echoes of it. But basically, we were also subjected to a lot of Columbine assembly talk. And it was just kind of a way that Canadians can just point at America and say, hey, look, guns are bad, these people are crazy, and we're superior, which I don't really agree with. Anyway, that's another topic, but another way we could be subjected to the trauma-based mind control. And then what was another big event? Well, we had right when I right when I graduated high school, the 2008 crisis happened, and lots of people lost their houses. Our generational home was sold for less than pennies on the dollar, which was a big hit because I really loved that generational home of mine. It was just a beautiful century home that my grandfather bought, and generations of us lived there. And I mean, today that house would be worth well over $1 million. But boomers gonna boom, and they were squabbling and squabbiting like Sackville Bagginses over what remains. And then, yeah. Anyway, so that happened, and then not a lot of job prospects. I didn't really want to go to college right away, so I worked in a mine. Slaved away like Conan the Barbarian on the Wheel of Pain for a long time, breaking stone with my hands, becoming a giga mensch. Yeah, that was fun. Very lazy. I was a really lazy guy, just breaking stones a lot, learning how to run heavy machinery as a kid. I don't know how to change a tire. My wrists are limp. Okay, boomer. That's and Gen X. Because Gen X is guilty too. I know I got some Gen X, but a lot of them were that's where a lot of my bullies were in the workplace. They were harping on me like I was just subhuman, basically, to them. I don't know what their problem was, but I think it had something to do with my wage being the same as them. And hey, it was a tough time. It was 2008, 2000 to 2010. That was a difficult time for everybody. So maybe I'm taking it personally because of the times, but there was a lot of, you know, talk of us being lazy. And then what happened? Okay, then we grow up, and we're supposed to hit the prime of our life, our stride of our life, and then the coof happens, and then everybody loses their minds collectively and starts getting nano machines injected into their eyeballs. Well, okay, not their eyeballs, but they opened up their bloodstream to whatever multinational corporation wanted to do what they wilt with them. I'm a pure blood, though. I did not succumb. And then, me being a little bit of the troll, I got that little drop of troll in me. Okay, I got a little bit of troll. You just have to have a little bit. You can't go full troll. I have a little bit of troll in me. I wanted to just troll everybody. So then I went on a trip to Europe during the coof, and I mean, I'm still a social pariah because of that. I didn't really, I kind of memory hold that whole experience because it's such a weird haze of life that happened there. I kind of memory hold it, but now I realize everybody in my social circle and wider community probably thinks I'm an absolute insane maniac for going to Europe during COVID and getting away with it unvaxxed, unchecked, unchallenged. Because I know how to find the loopholes. Okay, I know what to do. I remember being in the border, Poland, right, and we're getting in lit from Ukraine, And there's two password lines: EU citizens, Ukraine citizens. And I was like, hey, Mr. Polish guy, I am neither. I'm Canadian. He's like, oh, you're Canadian. Oh, come here, come here. And he opened up my own line. Okay, that's Canadian privilege right there. Okay, that's called leaf privilege. I got my own line, and then I mean the Ukrainians were upset. They were just sneering at me when I was not having to wait 3 hours to go through customs. And then the Polish guy, he looks at me, he's like, no vax? I'm like, no vax, but I read the rules and I got my quarantine hotel set up. I'm good to go. We have a special relationship. Apparently we have a special relationship with Poland, so Canadians could just get through. And then he calls up Interpol, and I swear, he's like, I swear, they were like, Indian? No, Canadian, not Indian. And then he hung up the phone, and then he let me in, and I was home free. Okay, and I was, all right. That's my privilege. Okay, maybe there's a little bit to that. Maybe it only works in Poland. So that happened, and okay, now we're in a recession. Yeah, we're in a recession. And by the way, World War III. I know a lot of people don't really like to talk about this. It's kind of a taboo subject, but as soon as North Korea entered the equation in the Ukraine conflict, to me, it feels more like a World War III scenario, at least like a preliminary World War III, like the Asian theater or something leading up to it. Because once you have multiple nations involved, it becomes a multinational conflict. So I think over 20 to 30,000 North Korean troops have been in Ukraine, and well over 1 million casualties, by the way. It's a major conflict, and the news cycle just happens so fast that because it's been ongoing for almost 4 years, everyone's kind of already forgotten about it. But this is like a big deal, and everyone's kind of just ostriching their heads in the sand about it. And yeah, so we have a lot going on with our generation, and it's going to be wild times ahead. It's going to continue to unravel. So buckle up. You haven't seen anything yet. But for me, I mean, again, I think a lot of us, we don't even feel anymore. We don't feel it anymore. We don't feel pain. We don't feel anxiety. We don't feel dread. For us, it's just baseline. It's just normal. It's whatever. And I'm sure Zoomers can even relate more so to this. Like, it's not even anything to us anymore. It's just like, yeah, okay, what's next? Yeah, okay. Like, of course, World War III is going to happen. Of course. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen, by the way. I don't want a World War III scenario to happen. But if it does happen, I'm not going to be surprised. I wasn't surprised when Kurt got shot. I was not surprised it happened. Of course it happened. Of course we're in a recession. But again, these types of scenarios, it's like a forge to the fire. It can make you stronger. It can make you better in a way, make you more adaptable, make you more creative. I just really try to channel all the angst and all the dread and all the stuff in my life and the world. I really just want to channel that into some art, into something creative. I used to write books, and nobody cares. And nobody bought them. And I was like, nobody reads books anymore. Like, what am I doing? I'm like the last book reader of all time. Okay, I'll still read, some obscure esoterica, and that's pretty much all I can stomach at this point. I'm not reading YA or anything. But it's not a medium that is effective anymore. I would still like to write books And if I do develop more of an audience, maybe there will be a market for that to actually make it worth it. Because I'm not just going to piss in the wind and not and write books just to tap myself on the shoulder and say, I'm a purist. I'm an analog echo boomer millennial. I'm not even going to use the internet anymore because I'm superior to you. And I don't play video games. I just watch Netflix all day. Okay. The video game thing. Look, it's Valhalla Simulator. What is not like? This is what Valhalla would probably be like. You know, you're just an infinite death match for all eternity and glory and honor until the Einherji come and the epic battle of the end times occurs. And then the whole reset happens. A great reset. Reset civilization. And I think that's the end thing. That's kind of the end game. Okay, my Tartarian enjoyers. I think we're going to have another reset. Maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe not and then even the next century, but I do really, I can feel it. I can feel the resets. It's going to happen one day. And I think things will be better down the line. I always had visions of, I didn't know what Hyperborea was for a long time. But I'd always have these visions of snowy mountain peaks and this green land in the center of it all. And it was interesting because I read Fall of Gondolin by Tolkien, and Gondolin was described in this way. And I think Tolkien was channeling a lot of stuff from higher dimensions. And when I hear the description of Hyperborea, I kind of feel it. It's not rational. I get that. It's supra rational, but I can feel there's something there, and I can feel something that correlates with my own spirit up in the air. Okay, I was more of like a Lord of the Rings, Star Wars kid. I know that's even, I mean, that's been kind of tarnished now. So I can already feel the judgment waning over me. But I liked mythic escapism even as a child, which is normal, obviously, but I always kept that with me. I always kind of kept that. And sure, you could say it's childish or whatever, but in this world that we live in, what is really wrong with that? Is there anything like, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want to have a haven of your own mental library that you could go into when things aren't panning out the way you want them to? Is that such a terrible thing to do? People cope and express that frustration in way worse and way more destructive ways than mythic escapism. And I mean, I think myth is real life. I think the Odyssey was real. I also think the Odyssey happened in the Baltic Sea, by the way. We'll get into that in a different video. Okay. Yeah, the descriptions of a misty, rocky sea that has amber in it, like the Baltic Sea, where people are afraid of freezing themselves or freezing to death. That doesn't sound like Greece to me, guys. Okay, that sounds like Scandinavia. All right, we're gonna get into that one day, but there's nothing wrong. And you know, millennials are told we're childish, we're immature. I play video games on this channel, ironically, it's like a symbol of rebellion against social norms that you should have to follow as a 30-year-old man, even though mostly that's gone now, but there's still that stigma involved. And so I think it should be destigmatized even amongst people like myself. And I'm going to double down. I did order a GoPro, and I'm going to do like hike footage, and you know, we'll see if people like the hike footage more. then I'll continue to make hike background videos for this. Or if people like video games more, I'll keep the video games. But guess what? I am going to probably guess that the video game footage will be more enjoyed. And that's just the way things are in the times we live in, you know. Again, you gotta be a wushu. You gotta use the way the thing you can't fight and try to slay the dragon. You have to ride the dragon. You have to ride the dragon. And that's what we're doing here. And obviously, this whole generational debate, this whole generational topic is a bit overblown. Of course, there's not hard lines with the generation. It's more of a, you know, a soft landing into each. But it is a useful way to describe how things are in the world. There is a benefit to it. I can see it. It is entertaining. It is fun to kind of talk about intergenerational strife. And enough people have noticed certain stereotypes about certain generations that just ring so true that, okay, it is a mainstay of how we will assess and analyze things that are going on in the world. I love it. I think it's great. You know, obviously, yeah, some not every single millennial is a certain way, not every single Gen Xer is a certain way, but there are currents, there are vibrational patterns, okay? You know, the Pisces was in the sextant to some, I don't know. That's one of my weaknesses. Okay, my astrology skill is low. I'm not astrology savvy. I'm a rune lord. I'm a rune mensch, and I just, you know, I maxed out all my skill points in other areas, and I just really don't have enough skill points left to get into astrology. So it's never really going to happen for me at this point in my life. You're better off focusing on what skill points that you've maxed out and already put the time into rather than trying to be some super broad. Only one guy managed to do that. Okay, again, Avila. The amount of knowledge and expertise that guy has in every sub niche of every esoteric and even political topic is just, I don't know what the guy was next. He was on another plane. There's a stanza from the Eddas that always speaks to me, that always kind of reminds me of the age that we live in. Brothers will fight and kill each other. Sisters' children will defile kinship. It is harsh in the world. Whoredom rife. An axe age, a sword age, shields are riven. A wind age, a wolf age, before the world goes headlong. No man will have mercy on another. And that's kind of how millennials live. Okay, I'm sure that that resonates, it hits home for a lot of you. Because again, millennials, we live in a battle royale. It's hyper competitive. It's hyper, yeah. And a lot of guys are like, my last video, you know, a lot of them, like so many people, the comments are just incredible. I have to, like, some of them are so off the wall that we have to talk about it because I just can't believe some of the experiences. But yeah, it's a different world. And do I think things are going to go back? Are women going to go back in the kitchen? Is the nuclear family going to come back? Are the manufacturing jobs going to come back? Are we going to go back to Leave It to Beaver and everything's going to be 1950s and it's going to be Fallout, and you know, we're going to be it's going to be the Fallout timeline without the apocalypse? I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think that's going to happen. I think things are the trajectory of what's going on. That's how things usually continue, is whatever trajectory you're already on. And so again, instead of finding like trying to just strike it with a sledgehammer, how can we adapt to it? How can we make it even benefit us in certain ways? I mean, the possibilities are endless. Okay, I have a lot of ideas. I'm sure you've heard some of them. Gladiatory arenas. I don't know why that always gets brought up. Something about gladiatory arenas just speaks to me on such a level that I have to bring it up. Okay, you know, if Chandler and McGregor are gonna fight, I'm like, okay, we're getting some old timers. We're getting the Masters Classic out. I thought McGregor wanted to be prime minister. Okay, what is going on? My foot was a balloon, Dana. My foot was a balloon. Yeah, and that's the absurdity I like to lean into. Okay, it feels like idiocracy. Like we have these guys fighting on the lawn. I mean, there's a certain glee to that. There's a certain energy to that I do. You know, you got to find the entertainment of it all. You got to find the levity of the chaos and the just, you know, the clown world. I call it Nephilim world. Okay, Nephilims are clowns, and if we live in clown world, then we actually live in Nephilim world. Okay, I don't know if you guys are mind unveiled, pilled or not, but you know, Cabbage Patch Kids being grown in fields, and the Nephilim are clowns. Okay, I mean they schizomog me into absolute oblivion, and I appreciate that because it gives me something to aspire to. It really does. I got to step it up. I am lacking compared to them. I really am. Okay, everyone. Well, we'll see how it goes in this video. If you enjoyed it, if you like, it really helps. All the likes you guys gave me in the last video really helped get it moving. And you know, a couple people were sneezing at me in the comments. It's fine, sneed. I you can't. I'm a millennial. I don't feel feels anymore, man. I am Agent K. I'm a Blade Runner. I'm a replica. I don't feel feels anymore, guys. Okay, so the sneezing it only adds to the entertainment. So yeah, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. I hope you guys have a good one.